watching him walk into a ring, the auditorium goes up, the expectation level goes up exponentially. So him being able to handle that pressure and manage himself through it, sometimes he has, sometimes he hasn't, but most of the time he has, is a massive, massive difference that Dubois hasn't experienced. So my tip is Anthony Joshua to win this fight, but I think it's such a fascinating fight because both of them can really whack. I do still think that despite the rehabilitation of Anthony, from not just my thought processes, more knowledgeable people that have spoken about the feelings that maybe the lights had gone out, that he wasn't prepared to go into the dark places, and the fights that he's had, he hasn't had to yet. The question for me, and I made an observation about it, which Eddie's commented on previously about the PTSD situation, is
what did you say there?
When he does get whacked, is he going to go where he needs to go to do things like he did against Klitschko, which was go to a very dark place, pick himself off the floor, and have the absolute resolve? I don't think that question's been answered or asked yet, and it may get asked by Daniel Dubois, and then only then you'll know if he's the Anthony Joshua prior to
Eddie Simon's previous PTSD comments. In other words, can Anthony take one on the chin from Dubois and crack on, or does he hit the canvas and it's good night? Lights out. Did you think there was relevance in what Simon raised?
No, I think, people always look to debate a heavyweight's chin or their resolve. I actually think Joshua has a good chin. I think when we look back, it's only really the Andy Ruiz fight, which, he didn't have the best preparation. It was 3 weeks out, but he got hit on the top of the head and he never really recovered. Went down, got up about 4 or 5 times, got beat that night. He took quite a decent shellacking off Usyk in the first fight, and particularly in the latter stages of that fight. If you look at the Usyk-Tyson Fury fight, Fury was completely on his feet. I mean, buzzed, rocked, gone.
Yeah.
AJ took everything from Usyk in that fight. Was never out on his feet, was tired towards the end of the fight. But, I actually think he has a good chin. It doesn't really matter how good your chin is. When you get hit, I think Dubois got a good chin, by the way. If you look at the Hrgovic fight, and I don't think Hrgovic physically looked a specimen in that fight, but he's definitely a world-class heavyweight. He hit Dubois with everything. It didn't really hurt him in that fight. And I think the way that Dubois has lost in the past, and I don't like to say it because I think all of these guys are incredibly brave, he quit. He quit against Joyce and he quit against Usyk, right? But he never got hurt. Like if you look at the knockout against Usyk, it was, he went down, it was a stiff jab, he took a knee and didn't really fancy getting up.
But some would make the accusation that Anthony Joshua did the same thing in the Ruiz fight. And it's not about, I'm not suggesting that he can't take a punch. I think the accusation was that Anthony doesn't let his hands go now and he doesn't want to put himself in range. And that was what was being said to me by, I'll say Carl Froch, you'll say, well, there's rancor there. And other people, not just, Froch or Barry McGuigan and other people. The general perception was, maybe he hasn't got the fire left him anymore. He's a very successful man. He's made a lot of money. And the business that you guys are in puts you in a way of danger and hurt. And in order to want to do that to the level to win a world title, does Joshua still have the fire? Yeah. And I don't think those questions have been answered by fighting Franklin, Helenius, Wallin and Ngannou. I think he's done a great job. No criticism implied. I think there may be a different challenge in front of him with Dubois, and only then will the full rehabilitation of Anthony Joshua be answered that, hang on, he still wants it as badly as he did once upon a time.
Data,
but he did quit against Ruiz, though, didn't he?
No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. I mean, he kept getting up.
But he quit no more than Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois had a shattered orbital bone.
No, but did he?
Well, medical history says he does.
Really? What medical history?
Well, coming out. Well, medical history says he does.
Really? What medical history?
Well, coming out of his camp.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I'm not privy to it any more than you are.
No, but
the point is, again, that's what was said.
When you quit, Simon, you take a knee, you look at the referee in the eye, and he says 8, 9, 10.
So what did Anthony do against Ruiz?
He got up every time, got up 4 times.
Yeah, but he stood in the corner being asked a question by the referee and he got waved off.
He went back to his corner and he was trying to get time. And the ref looked at him and said, you've been down 4 times, the fight's over. He had multiple opportunities to not get to his feet in that fight. And when you get to your feet, time and time again, after 4 knockdowns, the last thing you're doing is quitting. Daniel Dubois...
Do you think he quit against Usyk, Daniel Dubois?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, by the way, I don't blame him.
I'm asking you.
Yeah. I don't blame him. I think all these guys are incredibly tough. Yeah. But when he wasn't hurt badly in that fight. He got hit by a stiff jab. Things were getting on top. The referee he was on his knee looking at the referee.
No, I think he quit against Usyk.
When they look you in the
I
eye
agree with you.
and say 8, 9, 10, and then you get up, that's different.
Yes,
and it's very different to the Ruiz fight.
And there is Eddie Hearn and Simon Jordan going head to head. Fighter for fighter, fault for fault. And as you guys heard the back and forth between these two, it's always epic when Eddie Hearn goes to talk sports and becomes a guest, because Simon Jordan pulls no punches. As you heard Simon Jordan say, Anthony Joshua quit just like Daniel Dubois. Okay, that was what the argument was about. And let me counterpunch. First off, between Daniel Dubois, because you have two different times. Okay, so with Daniel Dubois, you have Joe Joyce and you have Alexander Usyk. Okay, he won the Kevin Lanana fight, to give him credit there, even though a lot of people thought he had a little quit in him in that fight. But Anthony Joshua has the Andy Ruiz incident, okay? The Madison Square Garden massacre, right? The upset of upsets since Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. Okay, so that was massive, okay, and it was more alarming because it was a bigger upset based on where Anthony Joshua was at the time. So you have to put that into the pot and stir it, because that man was the unified champion of the world. He was where Usyk was or is right now. A lot of people would argue that he is, undisputed. I'm not arguing that. But what I'm saying is this man, he was the man of men at that time. It was only another champion at that time, and his name was Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder at the WBC level. And he got beat by Andy Ruiz after being a replacement for Jarrell Miller. Okay, so Simon Jordan saying that Daniel Dubois quit. Okay, he wasn't debating that he quit. He's saying, I think he quit. I think he quit against Usyk. But I also think Anthony Joshua quit also along with him, just like him. And I would have to disagree with that. Okay, because there's a difference. And what Eddie was saying is differentiating the difference between how they quit, if people think it's a quit. Like I told you guys with Anthony Joshua, do I think Anthony Joshua quit against Andy Ruiz? No, I don't think he quit. But I'm thinking the referee did him a favor. If that man wouldn't have stopped that fight, Anthony Joshua would have been worse off. Okay, then based on the fact if he really was injured, like he said and promised us when he retires, he's going to write a book and says what really happened that night and trying to give you little hints and clues and all that. Right? So if he was compromised that night, that meant he was in there damaged, and Andy Ruiz kept putting insult to injury. Okay? So he would have got knocked down again. It would have been a fifth and sixth time, and it would just been embarrassing. So to the point of being in a new market, a new country, a new land, a new territory. And him getting beat like that, that would have been utterly embarrassing. His stock would have went okay? So, yeah, I'm glad it was stopped if you look at it in hindsight. But Daniel Dubois, the difference is he just quit. But you understand there was two separate incidents with Daniel Dubois, okay? So you had the Joe Joyce, like I said, okay? Joe Joyce, as Simon Jordan was defending, like, hey, he had the medical records. Now, here's the twist that Eddie countered with. What medical records? What medical records? And see, the thing is, and here's the thing, it opens up another huge question. What medical records? Like, what medical records did they actually produce? Okay? Now, to prove that his eye was broken, his orbital bone was broken, where did they show that at? Did they show the history? Did they show the surgery? Did they show the procedure? Did they show him at the hospital? Did they show? What did they really produce? All we heard is from some articles that Daniel Dubois suffered an orbital bone injury, so it was a good idea for him to quit. That could have been all PR damage control. It could have been that whole thing. It could have been the whole idea that Daniel Dubois quit. Unless somebody can produce more information for me and to me, I would love to hear it. But if now I never heard it. So good counterpunch by Eddie, because I never even thought of that. At first, I was thinking Eddie was talking about, or Simon was talking about Anthony Joshua being damaged. But he was talking about Danny Dubois in the Joe Joyce fight. Okay. And a lot of people give him a pass. Okay. Because that was what was responded on. That was the reply. That was the reason, supposedly, that, hey, this man's orbital bone was broken. Okay. That jab broke his orbital bone. Shout out to the juggernaut. Right? So, but we didn't see any evidence. So, Eddie went in and went for the, he went for the jugular. Now the question you ask yourself, though, the second fight, yes, Danny Dubois quit. Okay, Danny Dubois quit against Usyk with a jab, and I just think he just didn't want to fight no more. You know what I mean? And that wasn't a good look for him, because it showed disinterest in the fight. Like, this is the biggest fight of your life. You could have had the belts that Anthony Joshua used to have because Usyk took it from him. You know what I mean? And you quit from a jab. And that just didn't really look good for Daniel Dubois. See, at least you can say Anthony Joshua did get up. You know what I mean? But only he knows if his intentions were to go out there and give it his all, because that last knockdown was pretty piss poor. You know what I mean? When the punches that Andy Ruiz landed on him, they weren't hard punches. They weren't like the. It wasn't like Hollywood, like Creed 3, like knocked out. No, it was just like him just collapsing. Okay, so you have to look at these two, and they're both dark. I know these fighters both had better days. Simon Jordan says they both quit. Eddie Hearn argues, no, they didn't, and Anthony didn't, but Daniel did. And to summarize this, guys, I think, based on how they lost, they will all get criticized as being a quitter. I would put Danny Dubois in the category of Ryan Garcia. I wouldn't put him in the category of Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua was in a different situation. He was in a situation of possible potential further damage. Okay, in that fight. If he would have kept on, that referee would have said, come on, need to put that mouthpiece back in his mouth, and AJ would have went out there, he would have been knocked out again and again and again, and it would have been bad for him. You know what I mean? So it probably would have been better if Anthony Joshua really did quit. You know what I mean? But the referee did spare him and did him a solid. Okay, versus Danny Dubois just didn't want it no more. You know what I mean? So, no, those are two different things. Just like Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia, he was looking up, and he got up, intentionally after the count. When you do that, you don't want to fight. You forfeit that fight. You know the rules. Everybody knows that. If you don't watch boxing, you know that. You count to 10, then the end. Ding, ding, right? So there you go. That's my counterpunch on Anthony Joshua, Danny Dubois, Simon Jordan, Eddie Hearn, going head-to-head, toe-to-toe, face-to-face, like they always do. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!